Welcome back to another episode of Ask the Techies. I'm D. Lee Beard, and it's September 2007, and today I'm going to talk about whether you should buy a Windows computer or a Macintosh computer. You know, what is this chaos that we've got? You got Windows, you got Mac, you got a version of Photoshop for Macintosh, it won't run on Windows, or vice versa. Which should you get? How did we get into this kind of mess? Well, in order to understand that, you got to look a little bit at some computer history. Back in the 1970s, there were no personal computers. All there were these big computers that were the size of a room, and everyone was fighting to get access to these computers. So hobbyists began creating geeks, you might say, began creating their own computers. They take processors together, put stuff together, and create their own. Well, Apple Computer was one of the first ones to actually start selling a personal computer into the bigger market. You started getting other companies, like Commodore was a big one, Tandy, which was part of Radio Shack, and this became a really big business as everybody started realizing these personal computers could play computer games. You could do word processing on them, which made it really easy to be able to edit things that you were typing without having to type the whole thing all over again. That was a big pain. And then IBM, which was the big computer company at the time, began making personal computers, and that established them as a legitimate form of electronics for the businesses and for homes. And offices, suddenly everyone had a personal computer on their desk to be able to do all this stuff. Secretaries for word processing, spreadsheets for doing calculations, for big business calculations, that sort of thing. And the software that Microsoft wrote for IBM, their operating system, the system that allowed IBM's hardware to work and run all this other software, was called Microsoft DOS, D-O-S, Disk Operating System. And this was very cryptic. It was very short file names, so you had to kind of abbreviate things. You couldn't go beyond 8 characters if you wanted to spell something out. So if I wanted to spell out Ohio University, or if I wanted to say English term paper, I couldn't write all that out. I had to shorten it to 8 characters, and so often you'd abbreviate the names. And then you'd have like a period, and then you'd have like 3 other characters you could do after that. And that's how the 3 characters at the end of file names, like .doc for a Word document, .xls for an Excel document, that's how that came to be, those little extensions. It was a way to add on a little something extra to a file name that the computer would know what to do with it. And so that was very helpful in that time. So that made things a little bit confusing, and that's why that is the way it is right now. But when IBM and Microsoft partnered together, they sold all over. Microsoft made money off every license of Windows that went out there, and Microsoft allowed their operating system to sell to other companies. This was the mistake that Apple made, is they didn't license their operating system to other companies, and so people were limited as to what choices of hardware they could actually buy. And so you developed this sort of competition between Apple and Microsoft. Microsoft won because there was more choice. People were able to do it, and they were able to buy cheaper pieces often because it was cheaper. People were more willing to take the risk of buying a personal computer for the first time. They got locked into Windows, and you tend to stick with what you know, and that's why it kept on going that way. But today, there are still those choices where you still have Windows, you still have Macintosh. There's still choices, and there are advantages to each one of them. If you want to understand a little more about computer history, you might want to check out something like there's a fun movie that TNT made called The Pirates of Silicon Valley, that had Anthony Michael Hall playing the role of Bill Gates, who was co-founder of Microsoft. Well, actually, there were several founders of that. And then you had oh shoot, what's the guy's name from ER? Noah Wyle, sorry Noah, who played the role of Steve Jobs. Did a great job. It's kind of a fun video to watch if you want to learn a little more. If you really want to get into a lot of depth, I would recommend that you check out Triumph of the Nerds, and it's a PBS documentary. It's many videos. You should be able to find them at your video store or at a local library because they're really valuable. But that'll give you a better understanding. Well, now we have 2 different operating systems, but just how different are they? Let's take a look at the facts. What are the differences between the different ones so you can make an educated choice? One of the things about Windows, the big plus for a lot of people, is the breadth of software that is available for them. A lot of software is written for Windows. You know, there's certain things you can't get, like Microsoft Access if you're a business professional. That's not made for the Macintosh, so that's maybe a deterrent for you. A lot of games, gobs of computer games are written for Windows computers, so that's a big plus. That's one of the reasons you might want to go that way. Another big plus for Windows is the choices in hardware. Because you have computers from Dell, you have computers from Gateway, you have computers from Lenovo, you have computers from Toshiba, you know, the laptops. There's gobs of companies out there making lots of different choices for you, so you can get exactly what you want. But one of the things you see a lot of times when I look in here, like at this Dell tower, you know, you have like a couple of drive bays in here. You've got like a CD-ROM, a DVD-ROM drive. You've also got like a little media card drive here on the front for like reading compact flash card or SD cards, like from your digital camera. And that is so handy just to be able to pop those out and pop them in to read the memory off of that. Otherwise, you got to plug in your camera, you got to get the USB cable to plug into your USB port, which is a pain. Then it drains the batteries while you're importing the images off of the camera. It's a big pain. So if you do a lot of digital cameras, that's a big plus to have one already built in. It's just so convenient. So that's a nice thing. That's just one example. The choices in hardware, the different designs you've got are really nice. So that's a big plus with Windows. You do have more security problems. Windows is the most popular operating system out there, so it's easier for things to spread, like computer viruses, and there are gobs of computer viruses written for Windows. There's spyware, adware that you have to worry about. So you have to be really smart about how careful you are with your computer, how safe you are, what websites you go to, what you trust to install. Be very careful about that. You really should on either operating system, but there's just so many more bad guys out there doing stuff for Windows than there is for the Mac. The Windows computers are also far more easily upgradable. You know, it's like here, if I want to take out this drive, let's say that drive goes bad, I can easily just pop that out and pop in a new one. In fact, if I want to open this case up, there's a little lever back here I can pull. It opens up the side. There we go. That pops down. I can get inside it, pop out that drive bay, replace it with a cheap one that, you know, I find online. And that just makes it so much easier to be able to do that. You can't do that with an iMac. The other thing is on the back of the computer. If I was to take a look at the back, let me just set this aside. If I go to the back, I have all these cards in here where I can add additional types of card. I want to add another graphics card, take this one out, pop in a new one, I can. I have a card in here I've added for FireWire connections to be able to hook up external hard drives, which is a good way to back up data, by the way. Shouldn't always back up everything on an internal drive, because if lightning strikes and it fries that computer, it fried all your drives as well. So it's good to have some that are external that you can unplug. So, you know, there's more options to upgrade. One minus is you do have this big tower with Windows computers, and you also got to plan with this upgradability. You've then got to add room for an external display as well, so that takes up a lot more space. Some of these towers are kind of noisy, so that's a little bit of an issue for you. But overall, there's enough choice. I think you can probably find what you want to from the Sony makers as well. They make some pretty nice computers, nice looking if you want those types of features. Let's take a look at the Mac and, you know, some of the choices that are in that. You know, like I mentioned earlier about the CD-ROM drive. You know, if I take a look at this iMac, this little slit drive right here along the side, and that's where the CD goes in. You know, trying to take this apart to be able to swap that out, you can't. You really got to take that to a professional to be able to have that done. So take the slit. You can't upgrade that very well. But the only thing you can do on the iMac is upgrade the RAM. You can add some RAM. It's the only thing. The hard drive that's internal, you can't really take that out and pop in a new one if you want to upgrade and get a bigger one, because you find all those digital video files, all those Ask the Techies videos that you're downloading are eating up your hard drive space, but you can't bear to part with any of them. That's one of the issues that can be a thing. You can hook up an external one, but, you know, it's not very upgradable is one of the things. But it is very small. It's a very sleek design. It doesn't take up much space. This is the whole computer. The display and the computer. It's all in one unit, taking up this very small amount of space on a desk. That's a huge plus. I don't always have room for a bunch of towers, like in a computer lab or whether it's at my home. This is easy. It's also very portable. I can pick up the computer, move it to another room very easily. It's not a big problem. Now this is just the iMac. They do have